Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Now, are you one of these people who consider themselves a bit of a high achiever, maybe even an overachiever, sort of person whose opportunities comes to them easily and effortlessly, and you grab hold of them and you're immensely successful? Some may even say that everything you touch turns to gold. You know, from the outside looking in, everyone looks up to you. You're well respected within your community and as a leader in your field of expertise. And this can become quite addictive. But on the flip side of this, maybe underneath it, something doesn't feel quite right. You feel lost, maybe you feel an emptiness, and no matter how much more you achieve, you just don't seem to be able to fill that gap. And actually never seem to be able to get a sense of happiness and contentment. And this can actually have a knock-on effect to other areas of your life, such as your relationships with family, friends, even affect your health. So is there something deeper going on? And is all this busyness actually hiding something? And is it time to break free from it? Well, today we're going to have a bit of a wake-up call. And to help us wake up, I am joined by a pioneer of sports performance and human performance and sports science, rather. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He is a former NCAA tennis coach and the co-founder of the Human Performance Institute. He's a founding chair of the USTA Sports Science Committee and a distinguished speaker who's spoken on stages at the United Nations and US Congress. He is also an author. He wrote the book, The Corporate Athlete, and his latest work, The Mountains Within, he tells his own story, and he's going to share that with us today. So welcome to the show, Dr. Jack Groppel.
Hi, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you being here. And I'm so excited to talk to you about your book because it's a story, and we've mentioned previously, it's actually a story that can be quite common. And it's all about, you know, on the outside, like I said before, it's on the outside, you're feeling very ambitious and everything seems to be going well in your life, but all this constant achievement. And it's looking at what are we doing this for? And this book sort of takes you on your own personal journey as growing up as a lad, you know, adventures you had going on trips to Guatemala and other places. And you really have had an amazing career. It does appear like a dream career. But is all that achievement, are you doing it for yourself or are you doing it for other people, and the importance of that plays in your life and how this can actually maybe have a negative effect on your life?
Right.
Then obviously you went on this journey, a trip up Mount Kilimanjaro with your son, and what that meant and that process that you went through. And for me, reading the book, it sort of also speaks to the fact the mountains within is kind of the struggles we carry within ourselves. And it's hard, like climbing something like Mount Kilimanjaro, you have to train for it. It's hard, it's stressful, and it can have its dangers. Let's face that. But once you go through that hardship and you go through that struggle and you learn those lessons, once you get to the top is where you really have something amazing happen. But you kind of got to go through those struggles to get to that end point of something amazing.
Yeah, you know, and it was on the mountain. I was in my 60s and I have artificial knees, Julia, and my son was only 12 years old. For those that might be watching it, there's a picture of us at the summit. I know we might have listeners too, but they can't see the picture. But it was on the mountain that I realized that if I wrote a story about my life and my career, I had to tell the whole story. You see, we're not alone in this journey in life. You know, when I used to be a lot of professional speaking, I would often ask groups, and to my dismay, I was shocked to see, I would ask people, how many of you either had someone in your life that you felt like you had to please growing up, or you ever felt you weren't good enough? I said, please raise your hand. Almost everyone in every room raises their hand. For whatever reason, that resonates with people. So I think it's really important that we understand we're not in this journey alone of whatever it is we're doing in our life. But it was on Kilimanjaro, to your point, the exhilaration, yet the fear, the excitement, yet the anxiety, being with my son. And then you never knew how you were going to respond to altitude. Yes, we trained, but you never knew. Again, it's just like life. There's no guarantees. So yeah, it started with my relationship with my father, and that was a tough pill to swallow. And then this journey through life of decades of achievement. And yes, I'm blessed to have had an incredible career, but at the same time, at what cost?
Yeah. Well, I think this is what we want to get into. So I want to start let's start at the very beginning, as they say, the sound of music.
Yeah, I love that. So my dad was the hero and the villain of my story. He was both. I want that to be really clear. He wasn't just the villain. Yeah. He was also the hero. My dad, we lived in a small community. All of my relatives were farmers. So every weekend I'm on farms. I'm farming. I'm bucking bales of hay. I'm helping plow. I'm driving a tractor. I'm learning about farming. But in our small community, Dad had 21 beagles, 21 dogs in our backyard. Now, the reason he had that many is he actually had a kennel and he ran them in what was called field trials. trials. Now, these field trials were like competitions, and it wasn't hunting. There was no shooting, but you would release a rabbit, and then the beagle was timed on how quickly they could herd the rabbit back to the hunter. So it was all timing. It was called field trials. Dad's kennel was called Shady Dale Kennels, and one of his dogs he named after President Eisenhower, and the nickname of Eisenhower was Ike. So the dog's name, your listeners can look this up. The dog's name was Shady Dale Ike, and Ike was a national champion. And I just saw how my dad just was, you just see him beam every time. I show a picture in the book, in fact, of me when I'm 5 years old holding Ike's tail. My sister's holding Ike's head with all of Ike's trophies and ribbons. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, Dad decided he wanted to take a different job in teaching. We had to move to a little bit larger community, and he couldn't keep the dogs. So now I'm watching this process of my dad, who adored this animal, revered this animal, and Hardy trained this animal, but now we're going to sell Ike. I was going, I don't understand this as my little brain. But then we drove to Niagara Falls, and I watched a man, and this is the equivalent in today's money of around $12,000, hand over cash for Ike. And I'm going, and then Dad just, you see him beaming that he was that kind of achievement. So for wherever, right or wrong, my young brain felt, okay, the way to please my dad is through achievement. Because earlier, my dad believed spare the rod, spoil the child. So one particular story I tell in the book is I got a pretty hard beating, and I know I scared Dad. I'm just putting it in context. I don't give him, I'm not saying it was right or wrong, because it was wrong. It was excessive. But instead of cowering from that beating, I said, I'll show you how good I am. And that was the beginning, Julia. I mean, I was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts at age 13. That's unheard of. Most times you're 17. And here I am. And I received my Eagle 1 week before I turned 14, just to prove to my dad that I could do it.
Yeah.
And that's 13 years old. And then I taught myself to play tennis. I had introductory lessons, and then I taught myself to play, and I walked on and played for a Big Ten university in the United States. And my father thought I was nuts, wanting to go to school to play tennis. So he made me study agriculture. So I played tennis for the University of Illinois and got my undergraduate degree in wildlife biology. Now I can't find a job, and I couldn't find a job at all. And so I started grad school, and I started in population genetics. I'm thinking that I'm going to study migratory habits of wildlife. But you see, to study genetics, you have to go to a lab, and you have to study animals that breed very quickly so you can study generations. So my job, Julia, at 22 years of age, was to go to a laboratory and change the flour in test tubes so little beetle could procreate. So the joke, here I am crying myself to sleep every night that I'm creating a romantic environment for beetles to have sex. Come on, are you kidding me? This is my life.
Is there a job like that out there? But clearly there is.
Yeah, and I'm just going, you got to be kidding me. So one night, here I am. I'm literally crying myself to sleep every night. I'm so unhappy. And I call my sister. She's 10 years older than I am. And she said, what do you want to do? What do you love? And I said, I love tennis. She said, you've always been an athlete. Why don't you go talk to the people in physical education, which is now called kinesiology? And I make a long story short, I made an appointment. They accepted me to the Masters of Science program, and I took kinesiology and exercise physiology and human cadaver anatomy. So I'm literally dissecting a human cadaver at 22 I was 23 then. It was the next semester. I fell in love with the field. I fell in love with it. And at the end of that semester, my kinesiology professor took me under his wing and said 17 words, and then I'll stop, and then you can go with your next question. And he said, if you apply yourself, you could become a pioneering leader in the science of tennis performance. And that was it. I created my own career, just wanted to do quality work, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and it's interesting that because your whole career, the way it sort of formed, really stemmed, and I do wonder, do these things to your drive for success, as tough as it was, as your father was with you over those years, was that almost, I often think, because I think in my own experience, it's almost like that it's a reverse psychology. So it's almost like, well, if I'm tough, then it'll make them want to achieve more. Is there something in that? And is that really part of perhaps how it kind of set you on that path to saying, I'm going to prove myself, I'm going to do better?
Yeah. Yes, that is definitely what happened, because I felt that I was going to receive love and recognition from my dad as long as I kept achieving or doing really, really well in life. I really wasn't thinking of the word achievement. I just wanted to really do well in my life and career. And I mean, it's just fascinating when you start thinking about it, because I got my master's degree and I decided to go straight through and get a PhD. So I go to another school. So I have this one advisor, Dr. Charles Dillman, who said the 17 words to me. Then I go to Florida State University, and I had a Dr. Terry Ward, but I had Dr. Robert Singer, who was the president of the International Society of Sports Psychology. So now I got Chuck Dillman, Terry Ward, and Bob Singer, these huge leaders in the industry. And sports science is just getting started, but they're my mentors, and they shepherded shepherded me. So here I am. I finished my coursework at Florida State. And in 1977, I'd been there 2 years getting my coursework done. Hadn't written my dissertation yet. I get a call from Chuck Dillman back at the University of Illinois. And he said, Jack, the tennis coaching job has opened up here. This is a Big Ten university. This is one of the largest universities in the United States. The tennis, and we'd like you to apply for the job. And I did. And in those days, it was a joint appointment between coaching and teaching. So I got hired back at my alma mater to coach the men's tennis team. I'm just NCAA tennis coach in the country. Had no experience, Julia, and as an assistant professor at a Big Ten university. And I felt like I'd gotten the dream job. Here I am, 25 years old. I was lost just 3 years ago. Now I'm found. But then my research, as I said, I wanted to do quality work, and I started being asked to speak. And then players on the tour heard about my work. I started working with players on the tour, on the tennis tour. And after 4 years, I resigned from coaching the men's team. So I was traveling now. I'm working with athletes. I'm working with Nike. They asked me to work with John McEnroe in San Francisco. Then the Chicago White Sox professional baseball team heard me speak, and they asked me to work with their team. I mean, it was just a cascade of events, but it was because I was doing quality work. I think, and to really summarize your question, some people say failure is not an option. I never felt that way. I always felt, I didn't even think about failure. If something didn't work, I just went next. It was like, I didn't see the White Sox situation coming. I didn't see the players on the tour coming. I just knew, okay, I've got to submit this paper. I've got to get this published. Okay, I can do a presentation here. I'm going to submit an abstract. I'll go here. I never said no. That was probably the kicker. I was always trying to fill a void out in front of the public. And it just kept cascading. And because it was so new and my personality, maybe I was a maverick. I don't know. But yeah, it's just one thing after another then.
Well, for me, sort of reading that about you, and one thing that did come across is that sort of go-getting spirit, but a very positive mindset, even though
very positive.
You're on this trajectory, you're getting, like I say, you're getting all these opportunities, expected opportunities, and you don't sort of worry too much. You're not focusing on, well, if it fails or not, you're just going to go for it, try it, and give it your all, give it 100%, do your very best for it.
Yeah, it's quite ironic now looking back on my life. I don't think I ever felt that about failure. I was never worried about it. Yeah. Here I was. I never had a speech class. I never had a tennis class. Yet I'm traveling all over the world. I'm in 3 tennis coaching halls of fame. I never had a business class. Yet I start a business and sell it to a Fortune 50 company. Yeah. I mean, it's like, and I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is I saw opportunities and I said, whatever it takes, I'm going to learn how to do this. And that's what I did. Now, let's make sure your listeners are understanding. My personal life was falling apart during all this. So I don't want to sacrifice that part of the conversation either.
Yeah. And going back to, obviously, how can I say this? I guess you're doing all of this, but at the same time, obviously your parents were thinking you were going down this, helping beetles create
genetic,
life.
Wildlife. Yeah.
But even with all this success going on, all this achievement, you still weren't getting the recognition that most people would think most family members would be absolutely super excited for you, be celebrating God knows what they'd be doing in excitement for you and wanting you to see you achieve great things. But this wasn't kind of the case for you, was it?
No, in fact, I'll tell, there's a pretty funny story that I tell in the book that I think every time I say it, my father turns over in his grave. My father was a public school teacher. So here I am with everything that I've gone through. Now I get tenure at the University of Illinois, and I had a joint appointment in kinesiology and also in bioengineering. And this is one of the top engineering schools in the world. And I had tenure, but the director of player development position at the Harry Hopman Saddlebrook International Tennis Program opened up, and they offered me a position. So I quit. I gave up tenure, Julia, at a major American university to become a tennis coach. And my father thought I was absolutely insane.
Well, it is kind of risky, isn't it? You go from like tenure, it's like a job for life, isn't it?
It is. It is a job for life. But again, here's my thinking. Whether it's default, whether it's faulty thinking or not, but I think this is worth noting because I think so many people are afraid of risk. And I was never a big risk taker. I was a moderate risk taker. So even that, in my mind, I could always go back into higher education. Probably not back at Illinois where I've quit, but I'm sure I could get a job in higher education. I mean, that was my thinking, that if this doesn't work out after 3 years, okay, I'll go back into into higher education.
Yeah.
I was never a severe risk taker, but I think some people just are afraid of any kind of risk.
I think that's true. I think it was particularly high risk. You can understand high risk, but there's a certain amount of risk you can take, providing you do your research and you look into things in depth and you balance out, well, what's the degree of risk in it, and you mitigate that somehow and sort of make allowances for it, or you're prepared. So you prepare for anything that could potentially go wrong. So you really lower that risk, even
exactly.
if it's a high risk game, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that you do, which you obviously did in this instance.
That's exactly right. I mean, again, everything is a risk, first of all. I mean, life is a risk. We
guaranteed.
We get into our comfort zone, and I never really, I had this conversation with someone earlier today, that my brain is just going. Here I am at this stage in my life, and they were asking me, am I retired? Are you kidding me? There's two words that exist in the original Hebrew, or don't exist in the original Hebrew. One is vacation and the other is retirement. In the original Hebrew, no one ever needed a vacation because everything worked in seasons. So you had plenty of time, and no one ever retired because the elders in the tribe or the community were given different positions. So there was no retirement and there was no vacation. So the word retirement for me, when people tell me they're retiring, I often ask, what are you going to do now? Because you really do need to do something. And maybe it's mental. Maybe you've been in a physical laboring job. Now maybe you get into a mental kind of a situation where you're doing something mentally, or maybe you've been doing something mentally. Maybe you take up, I've met a lot of people who they retired from their day job and they've become tennis coaches, for example, or tennis teachers to children. And they don't work a whole lot, but they work 3 to 4 hours a day, and it fills them up. So I often ask people, what's going to fill you up?
Well, I think that's the thing. I know you obviously found it when you made that change into your tennis career and sports science, that you found your passion there. And I think that is really important. Whatever you plan to do is finding something you have a passion and a purpose for. I mean, yourself, weren't you one of the, I think in your book, it says that you were the first people to use sort of cameras as well to look at athletes, the way they move on court.
Yes, I was one of the first. And in the 70s, I was taking films of Billie Jean King. And then in the early 80s, I got to work with Stan Smith. And that was, just amazing situations for me to be able to have access, because this is way before video ever existed. There was no video. I mean, home movies were 8mm, but I was using high-speed 16mm film. Yeah, I was one of the first. I was definitely one of the first in tennis. Vic Braden and I were the two people doing almost all of that work in the 70s and early 80s. And then I just kept doing it. But I think, and when you're the first one on the block, there's a certain marketing that happens around that with your brand and your reputation. But if you don't do quality work, then you're just going to be thrown to the side. And that was the one thing that was important to me, that I did quality work in everything that I did. It had to be top quality, everything.
Yeah. Is that kind of like a pressure you kind of put on yourself? I mean, I guess it comes down to what I mentioned earlier about this busyness.
Yeah, it is pressure.
Trying to fill this gap. And
it is pressure.
Yeah.
But I never felt it as pressure. It was an expectation. It was an expectation that I've got to do a good, for example, I can't tell you how many times that I may have I was digitizing film and I may have misread a number. And I'm going, did I curse? Yes, because you got to start all over. But did I shortcut and try? No, I started all over. And I said, no, we got to get this right. And could I have shortcutted? Yeah, possibly, but I can't imagine doing that. Do you see what I'm getting at? I can't imagine shortcutting and having, my ethics were too high. I wanted to be proud of the work that I did. And that was really key in my growth. And it might come back to Dad and Ike, our dog, because I saw the kind of effort that Dad put into Ike. That's why I want it to be clear that Dad was both the hero and the villain by pushing me so hard and the physical abuse. But there was also that hero part that taught me how to work.
But it's almost like you say, that sort of, it's that double-edged sword, isn't it? You look up to them because obviously they have this great work ethic, which is instilled into you, which helped you become very successful. But at the same time, you were still feeling like you were seeking this sort of approval, which many people never seem to get, and they never seem to get closure on that. And they go their whole life really striving, even long after their parent has passed, they're still striving to achieve that. And I've seen this happen with people myself.
Yes.
And that has got to be tough.
Well,
The first thing you want is the approval of your parents and them to be happy and proud of you.
Right. Well, I never heard and I'm not asking for any pity, but I never heard the words "I love you" till I was about 46 years old. And I forced them to be said. So I think, to your point, a lot of people, they don't confront this with their parents and they let it go, and then suddenly they're gone.
Yeah.
And they've got regrets.
What do you think the reason is people don't confront with their parents? Is it because they just want to, don't want to cause any trouble, don't want to stress?
Probably. They just don't want the confrontation with them. No, they don't want to. It's a range of things as to why. I mean, maybe they're afraid, all the way to they don't want to hurt their feelings. And I don't know if there's any one reason we wouldn't confront our parents. I mean, you've read my book, so you know what I did. I was in a large arena in the United States, 20,000 people, and my mom and dad were in the arena. And you've got to understand that my father never came to watch me play tennis. He never came to watch me speak, but he's here at this one event and nobody knows who I am. And I'm following a very, very famous radio announcer in the United States by the name of Paul Harvey. And I'm preceding Mikhail Gorbachev, the former prime minister of the Soviet Union and of the former Soviet Union. And I walk on stage and I tell everybody, it was in St. Louis, so it was near where I grew up. I tell everybody I'm a hometown guy. And I proceeded, Julia, to probably give the talk of my life. 20,000 people who did not know who I was. I got a standing ovation. And my dad is in the audience, my mom and dad. And I walk up into the corridor and I'm going to sign autograph books for people. And we got a picture, mom and dad and I. And then I looked at dad and I said, well, what'd you think? And he said, son, you're pretty good, but Paul Harvey was by far the best speaker of the whole day.
Wow.
And I said, I won't say exactly what I said, but I said, you got to be blanking kidding me. Really?
Yeah, because you did have a bit of an argument with your father after that, didn't you?
Yeah, that night I forced him to say the words, I love you to me.
Yeah.
And then once he said them, he actually started saying, I love you before I would, because he wasn't comfortable saying the words. See, this is the problem that I ran into personally, because I was never modeled a really healthy relationship between a man and a woman. So here I get married because I'm supposed to get married, right? I even have as you know, I have a statement in the book where I said I wouldn't have married me. Looking back on my life now, I had no energy to give to someone, and that wasn't fair. So the idea that I was so driven and so successful and I'm in so many halls of fame, but at what cost again? See, that's why I wrote the book. I want people to get a handle on, you don't need to give up everything to excel. Could I have just said no to a few things and then made my marriage healthy? Of course I could have, but I didn't know how. And I didn't understand why or how. I got married because I was supposed to get married. That's what we did. If you're not married, well, what's wrong with you? Or, I mean, that was, and again, I know that's faulty thinking, but I'm owning my own story.
But it comes from the examples you've had. As well, you don't want to blame your parents because they have their own story and their own reason why they behave they do. And, their generation, how they behaved in their generation as well. But also for you being on the go and then obviously getting married, but you're constantly traveling, constantly seeking, you're getting all these opportunities. Right. Let's face it, when these things are going well, at some point it isn't going to last forever, maybe. So you take them while they're there because you're enjoying it. It's fun as well. It's exciting. But yet at the same time, is it that sense of if I come back and stop, even though you want to be with the person that you're with, that's on some level, subconsciously maybe, that you then have to come back and face the reality of life almost. But when you're away and you're engrossed in this amazing career, that is also a distraction, but it also creates a sort of pressure because you have this sort of tug of war going, be wanting to do what you want to do because you love it and it's your passion, but also feeling, well, this is what I should be doing because this is the expectation, family expectation or societal expectation.
Well, that's exactly right. And then you think you're doing the right thing. You assume that you're doing the right thing. And then, I grew up in a culture where, well, I was the provider and okay, I'm providing. So I'm doing my role and I'm taking this person all over the world with me who I love. I'm professing my love to her and I'm taking her to Wimbledon and I'm taking her to the Australian Open and she's a tennis person and aren't things great? No, they weren't great, but I wasn't reading the tea leaves. I wasn't seeing that she was feeling, and I just kept going. I just kept going until, as you know from the book, I hit rock bottom and I said to myself, this has got to change.
Was this at the point where you started sort of drinking as well?
I was drinking and I was carousing quite a bit. I called myself a serial dater, because I was just lack of companionship. I was lonely. I don't care how much you love speaking and traveling. When you finish and this is your life, you go back to a hotel, and a hotel room in Rome and Cape Town and Hong Kong is still a 4-wall room. You're in beautiful destinations, but it's still 4 walls. And that was hard for me. When I hit rock bottom, I was hospitalized. I got a staph infection in 15 days. Now here I was really well known, traveling all over the world. I've been to 52 countries. People know who I am, and especially in the tennis industry. And in 15 days in the hospital with a PICC line into my heart because they couldn't find the antibiotic to the staph infection, I had one person outside my family come to visit visit me. Now, I had phone calls. Don't get me wrong. I had people calling me. But the fact that I only had one person come to visit me, I'm just going, you got to be kidding me. This is not how I want my life to be.
Yeah.
And that got me on the trajectory to change my life and change my attitude. But it was hard. I had work to do.
Yeah. I mean, what was that change like, that process you went through to sort of go through that and then get out the other side? Because obviously when your health's affected, I mean, you get into all the operations you've had, et cetera, as well.
There were two things that happened.
Yeah, the level that's impacting your health.
Yeah, the most important thing was reconnecting spiritually to my faith. I mean, but that wasn't quick, because I was the kind of young man. My mother took me to Sunday school, as we call it here in the United States, and but it was kind of the stories. I didn't really get connected to it. But here I am, and they're putting a tube into my heart with antibiotics, and the doctor says we've got to figure out how to get. And you can read between the lines. Well, this could kill you. You're going, but yet nobody's. And I realized I wasn't putting energy into other people. And it was then I said to myself, okay, spiritually, who am I? So I started really doing a lot of research. And again, this is my story. I'm not proselytizing or anything. I'm just telling my story. But I read two very important books. One was called The Science of God, and the other was called God, the Evidence, because I'm a scientist, and I knew there was going to be no change unless I understood it first somehow. And I have a quote in the book, when I read that it was, to go from a Big Bang to organized biological beings was 10 to the minus 29th power of impossibility, I went, okay, then I've got to go further and understand this. And then I got more connected to my faith, and I got taken under the wing of a pastor who put me into a men's leadership group, and I was able to study and understand. And that was the big step, was getting that and then becoming baptized. But then in 9 years after that, that's when the real coup d'etat hit. And that was going to China by myself to adopt my 3.5-year-old son. And this is where I say that God has a sense of humor, because he's going to send this man in his 50s to China by himself. They're going to put a screaming 3.5-year-old in his arms that hates his guts. And this child can't speak English and the man can't speak Mandarin. And we're going to teach them both how to love each other. That was life-changing.
And did that sort of, because obviously you always think when you have children, you kind of look to your family or your parents as an example. But for you, it was a very different experience, wasn't it?
Yes. He did not like me. He was screaming that he was being kidnapped. Yeah, he was screaming that he was being kidnapped. We go back to the hotel room. And again, I tell these stories in the book, Mountains Within, that we go back to the hotel room. Poor kid is just grieving. You got to understand, I pulled him from everything that he knew was safe. The nannies and
I've read in the story how he was discovered as well. And it's really, really sad and shocking.
It is.
In your book, your son's story, and then obviously there's the story about another little boy.
Oh, Jacob,
yeah, which actually broke my heart. I was all in tears.
Yeah, there's two stories about children in the book that are just beautiful stories, truly beautiful stories, but they'll get to you.
Yeah.
But Shen, my son, we go back to the hotel and he's grieving. So the translator, I'll never forget this. Your listeners will enjoy this story. Everybody loves this story. The translator, it's taken us 3 hours to get from the civil affairs office back to the hotel. My son's been grieving and crying the whole time. The translator goes up to the hotel room with us, takes him in and shows him a toilet for the first time in his life, because all he's ever had is a flat receptacle in the floor. He's never seen a toilet, and he's still crying. We walk out and I'm just going, oh man. And the translator looks at me and says, all right, Mr. Groppel, I'm sorry, but I have to leave now. And I went, no, you don't.
Scary moment.
I offered him $1,000 to stay for just a couple more hours. And he said, I can't accept your money. I'll lose my job. I have other families I have to go to. And I even offered more money, but it wasn't about the money. He said, but there's two things that you have to be aware of before I leave. He says, number one, he knows how to unlock the door. He's 3.5 years old. He will run on you tonight. And I'm going, what do I do? What do I do with that? And then I said, well, what's number two? And he says, whatever you do, don't give him a bath. I said, why? Because he was filthy. And he said, because it'll push him further away. And I'm going, okay. So the translator leaves. I order room service. We're eating. My poor son is just weeping. And while there's a crib in the room, because once you're an adoption family, they don't know how old your child is. So I take the crib. I'm becoming an escape artist. So I'm going to put the crib in front of the door. And I'm thinking, I'm a light sleeper. If he tries to run, he'll move the crib. It'll wake me up. I'll get him. So I have him help me move the crib. He has no idea what we're doing because we can't communicate. So I have him help me move the crib and like this. And he moved the crib. He's smiling at me now and puts the crib in front of the door. I put him on the end of the bed. I put cartoons on and they're in Mandarin, obviously. I don't understand a thing that's going on. And I go in and it's just a king size bed in a hotel room. And I go sit at the desk and I'm looking at my son and I said a little prayer. I said, like, God, what do you want me to do? Because I don't know what to do. I really do not know what to do. And I felt in my heart, give him a bath. Now remember, the translator said, whatever you do, don't give him a bath. And I actually said in English, I looked up and said, did you hear what the translator said? I'm going to ask you one more time. And I felt on my heart, I felt you've got to give him a bath. And I said, okay, I'm going to give him a bath. So he's he's scared to death. I'm taking his clothes off. So I make a decision. I'm not going to wash his hair, no soap in the eyes, no private parts. So all I do is wash his feet and his shoulders. That's all.
Yeah.
And I get him out of the tub. I towel him off. I put him in a pair of pajamas that I brought. I give him a sippy cup of apple juice, not another tear, Julia. And he slept right next to me the entire night. It was the most amazing situation. And that was the beginning of us bonding.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't even think of doing something like that. To me, that would have been the biggest challenge. I mean, you had some challenges over your career, but that to me would have been the biggest one.
Well, I literally said, there but by the grace of God go I, because I had no idea what I was doing. I said, this was just another situation like walking on stage in front of 20,000 people that don't know who I am. Think about that. When I walk on stage, I'm a good bathroom break, Julia. I mean, that's all I am. I mean, I'm following Christopher Reeve, who's formerly Superman, and preceding Margaret Thatcher.
I know.
And who am I? Nobody knows who I am. So I'm the greatest bathroom break in the world. So I had to keep them in their seats. And it was just an amazing situation for me so my whole life was, okay, here we go. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to do this.
You're just going to grab it like I said, grab it with those both hands and go for it.
And I don't know how this is going to turn out, but we're going to do it.
Yeah. But let's then led on now. Your son is older.
Yeah, he's 21 years old now.
Wow. And well adjusted. But you also tell us this story that you went on together to Kilimanjaro. Because in a bit, I want to get onto the lessons that we'll learn and we can share with, but just explain how that came about. And, I think you said your son was 12 years old at the time when you went to do this.
Yeah, he was 12. And the reason we went was that my father and I, because I think this is really key, even though my father and I were estranged, when I was 20 years old and at the University of Illinois, my dad called me one spring and said, we're going to take a trip this summer. Tell your tennis coach you're not going to play many tournaments. And I said, where are we going? He says, we're going to drive to Alaska. Right. And I'm going, Dad. And I said, how far? He says, it's a little over 4,000 miles we're going to drive. And I'm going, Dad, how long? He says, I think we can do it in 6 weeks. And I literally said, Dad, we will kill each other. There's no way. There's no way. And he says, I think we got to do it. We got to do it. And that was the beginning of he and I reconciling, even though we didn't really reconcile totally for almost 20 years more, but that was the beginning of us at least being able to talk. And I tell some funny stories while we're on the trip to Alaska that your readers will enjoy in the book. But so I adopt my son, and I'm obviously an older father. And I just kept thinking about the trip to Alaska with my dad. And I said, I want to do something like that with my son. But again, I'm me, and I'm sort of go big or go home. And I realized that Kilimanjaro is the highest mountain in the world that you can actually hike. There's no technical climbing, no technical gear needed. It's the highest mountain in the world that you can actually hike. And I'm going, So his mom and I had gotten divorced, and I called her, and because I would obviously need her permission because he's only 12. And I said, well, what do you think? And he was actually 11 at the time. So we did a year of preparation. And it was kind of funny because I talked her into allowing it to happen. She was very gracious, by the way. But then right after that, I called her back. I said, do you mind not telling anybody about this yet? Because I haven't even talked to him yet. And she goes, what do you think I'm going to do? Tell everybody what that blanking idiot wants to do now, being me. And I said, well, that's kind of one way to look at it, I guess. But anyway, she was great. So yeah, he and I trained. We went after it. We got ready, and we went to Africa for 2 weeks. The first week we did a photographic safari in the Serengeti. We saw the Great Migration. And the whole time we're getting ready to climb Kilimanjaro. And we started on August 1, and we got on the way to the mountain. We leave the hotel. There was no water in the hotel. So nobody could take a shower. We're not going to be able to take showers for 8 days. We couldn't even take a shower in the morning we left. There was no water in the hotel. Electricity was out. Everything was out. We have to pack everything. When we pack everything, and then we get in the van. We start driving. Our driver got lost. We were lost for over 2 hours on the way to the mountain. Then we get to the mountain, and we're at the base. We're at our starting point at the Lemosho Route, and you're at about 7,500 feet elevation. And all of a sudden, a small bug flew in the ear of one of our fellow climbers, a woman, and she was screaming in agony. And thank goodness we had a doctor with us, and she was able to help her and calm her down and but this is how our day started. So we start off, no water, no electricity, getting lost, and then a bug flying in a friend's ear. Then we start hiking. And it was hard. I will tell you, even on the first afternoon, I'm dying already. And we just got started. I mean, it was just vertical. You're just doing this. And even though you're not at a severe elevation yet, and I'm just, did I make the right decision? I mean, I start questioning myself immediately. We get to our campsite that night. The next day we do some climb high, sleep low, kept going going higher. At the end of the second day, we hadn't seen the top of the mountain yet. We hadn't seen Kilimanjaro yet. It was cloudy. And that second night, we're at about 12,000 feet and the sky cleared and we could see the summit and the peak. And all you can do is go, you got to be kidding me. Like, it is so high and it is so far away and we're already at 12,000 feet. And you just go, I can't do it. I can't do it. And I think there's a lesson there because very often we think of the whole totality of things we have to do and we go, I can't do it. But we could take the next step and we could take the step after that. And my son and I, we just said, look, all we got to do is just keep taking the next step. The next step, that's all we're going to do. And suddenly we found ourselves at the summit. And I think that's a lesson.
Yeah. And I think your son came across quite fearless in doing all of this.
Unbelievable. And what I want to say about him and the lesson to be learned here from him at 12 is that after dinner every night, he could have gone back to the tent and played a game that he'd stored on his phone or read a book, but he didn't. You know what he did? He played cards with all of our fellow climbers I think the closest one in age was 25 or 26 and everybody else was closer. I was by far the oldest and he was the youngest on the mountain, but he played cards with everybody. And see, he and I played a lot of cards when he was little, so nobody could beat him. This is the funniest thing. He's playing hearts and king's corners and poker. Nobody can beat him. And his nickname became the big dog because the big dog could beat anybody at cards. Well, now, and this is getting to the lesson now, we get to summit night and you wake up around 10 or 10:30 and you start hiking all night. You're going to go from 15,300 to 19,000. You're going to go 4,000 vertical feet at extreme altitude and it's freezing weather. The wind is whipping across the mountain. You're hallucinating. I mean, I'm hallucinating. I'm literally seeing when I was a child at my grandparents' farm going around the fence post. When in fact, there's no fence post there. It's just my brain was seeing because of the lack of oxygen. And we'd been climbing all night. It's daylight. We'd seen a beautiful sunrise and we're about 200 to 300 yards from the cone, not the summit yet, but from the volcanic cone. Basically, when you're at this point now, you're so exhausted. It's chuck your poles, take a step, chuck your poles, take a step because of the scree and the verticality. And all of a sudden I heard this loud noise and I look up and people were sick. They were throwing up. They had altitude sickness.
Okay.
And the rangers were rushing them down the mountain and it startled me. And I turned around to my son. His name is Shen. And I said, Shen, are you okay? And he didn't answer me. And it scared me even more that he didn't answer me. I said, Shen, you've got to answer me, buddy. Are you okay? So this is my son, 12 years of age, his head down. And all he does is shake his head up and down that he's okay. He can't talk. And the guide who was with us heard me get firm with him and came back and he goes, Shen, do you want to go back? And I'm thinking, we're done. We're done because he just gave that opening that we can go back. And my 12-year-old son, do you want to go back? Head down. He shakes his head no. Can't talk, but he shakes his head no. And at that moment in time, Julia, here's the lesson. All the people that he'd been playing cards with the whole week saw him stuck and they started screaming and cheering for my son. And I start weeping. I'm going, buddy, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to go. And I didn't know if he meant down or up. And I started to walk over to him and he held his hand up. He says, I got this, Dad. I got this, Dad. And he started hiking. But I believe it was the love that they surrounded him with, but it was because of him putting energy into them and playing cards and connecting that they connected with him. And it was that love that got him to the summit of Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. For you, I mean, seeing all of this playing out, and for you, what did that tell you looking back on your own life and your own struggles? What did that teach you personally?
Well, although I had a lot of very good professional mentors, I didn't have a lot of really great personal mentors earlier in my life. And that's where I wish I would have had, like when I adopted him, I knew that I was not going to raise him the way I was raised. I was not going to be the parent that my father was to me. There was no hitting. There was never. I mean, obviously I had to get firm with him sometimes as a child for discipline, but I didn't have to hit him. And I just knew that he was not going to be raised the way I was. And it turned out to be a wonderful young man. And just the way he was there on that mountain at age 12. And then 2 years later, he wins a national championship in karate here in the United States. I mean, it's just amazing, this young man.
He's taken completely after you.
I don't think so. I think he's got his head on a lot straighter than his dad did at his age.
I mean, if you were to give advice to someone who's sort of 40 plus and they are going through their own struggles, maybe similar to yourself, they're going through life and they're just feeling like, they're desperately trying to please other people and getting nowhere and feeling very frustrated and feeling like they want to give up. What would your advice be for them to see them come out the other side? What is it they need to be doing?
They have to, first of all, take one day at a time. Life is always bigger than we make it, but it's also doable. Life is manageable. Don't let life overwhelm you. Take one day at a time, one step at a time, but always ask yourself what matters most right now. I wish I would have done that earlier in my life. What matters
Mm.
most right now? That's so key. I can't emphasize it enough. That question, what matters most right now? Because if you can calibrate your life that way, every day of your life, wake up with that. Put it in your reminders in your calendar to ask yourself, what matters most right now? Put it when you go on your way home from work. What matters most right now? It's not that you've had a tough day at work. It's that you're going to walk in and be with the people that you love. What matters most right now? I just wish I would have calibrated my days like that much earlier than my life.
Yeah. And about getting balance in life. I mean, people always say, you know, when you're very successful and you're busy, you know, there's no such thing as work-life balance. We hear all this thing about work-life balance. But I sometimes wonder, is that one of the reasons some people struggle, is because they're not giving themselves that time to take a break and just do something that is of value, which is like being with the people you love. It's almost a fear that, well, if I stop, then everything's going to fall apart. So I need to keep this together, even if it comes from a good place and you want to provide for your family.
There's a lot of parts to that question. Let's talk about the balance piece. If you're thinking of balance as the scales, you're not going to find that. You spend more hours at work, you're sleeping, you're not that, they're not going to weigh. This is not the kind of balance we're talking about. So I don't like the word balance. I like integration. I like harmony. Life has to work for you. But I guess where I really want people to focus, and I talk about this in the book, is the integration of having boundaries. Having boundaries. Be intentional. If you're going to be with your family, don't work. Now, let's say you work for an international, multinational organization, and here I am in the US and I've got a call with Asia. All right, I might have to make a call at 9:00 at night. Well, I get home at 6:00. I talk to my family, have dinner. I totally am with my family, and I communicate very clearly that I have this call at 9:00. And then as soon as the call's over, I'm no longer working. See, I think we sometimes don't live with boundaries very well.
True,
and this is one of the things that I talk about in the book, is how to be intentional and how to have boundaries.
And having that open conversation, I think maybe that's something that we're losing. I think being able to just talk, everything's coming at us for a million miles an hour, and we're doing our best. But I think sometimes we're just not stopping and speaking to one another, giving each other enough time. And it's like a 24/7 life almost.
That's exactly right. 100%. You're spot on. It is a 24/7 life in today's world with social media. I mean, this changed everything.
Yeah.
It's changed everything. See, before 1995, when we left work, nobody could find us.
Well, no, you had to. I mean, when I first came to London in the early 90s, I think in the first flat I rented, we didn't even have a phone. I had to go to the Fox down the road to make a call.
And that's my point. When you left work, no one could find you.
No.
Now we're accessible 24/7, 365, and nobody taught us how to have boundaries.
Yeah.
Nobody taught us how to be intentional.
Is that something you were instilling in your son? Is that something, boundaries as something you've been very, what did you say, purposeful in, you know, in
100%.
He understands that.
Yes.
Because that's going to protect him moving forward in his life and in his careers. Not just about boundaries at home, it's boundaries at work as well, and then anything you choose to do. Yeah.
When I left Johnson & Johnson in 2019, put together a beautiful retirement party for me, and he came to it, and I made a public commitment. Now, you gotta understand, here I am, this man traveling all over the world. I could make a lot of money speaking. I could do a lot. I made a public commitment. He was going to be entering high school, and I made a public commitment to him in front of everyone there that I was not going to get on a plane for business for the next 4 years while he was in high school. Now, did I lose money? I probably lost a lot of money, but I didn't care. I needed to put him first. And I think that's really important, that I'm not saying stop doing what you're doing, but have boundaries around what you're doing. Because I'd been traveling so much, I said, I'm not going to be gone. I'm not going to miss a game. I'm not going to miss a concert. I'm not going to miss a speech that he gives in high school. I'm not going to miss one. And was being intentional. And, and I think also when, here I am with my background in tennis, when I adopted him and he was old enough to understand, like two years later, I said, would you like to play tennis? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, I just want you to be real clear. I will not teach you to play tennis because I want to be your dad. I don't want to be your tennis teacher. I will hire somebody who's really good to teach you to play tennis and coach you because I'm going to be your dad. we're not going to confuse those boundaries. So there's a couple of areas right there where I hope that helps people.
Yeah. So for me, the takeaways then are sort of be intentional with what you do and set those boundaries and kind of, and don't be fearless in terms of spending time with the people that you love, because you'll never get that time again. And always make sure that you praise people, you express how proud you are of them and that you love them. And that kind of comes back to you in many ways, energetically and in love as well. It comes back to you.
Gratitude is critical. Gratitude is critically important, to your point. Totally agree with you.
And that comes as well from faith as well. I'm speaking to so many people who now are just, they have this faith underpinning everything. and how important that is.
Yeah. I mean, we could go in a whole new direction with that. I mean, the whole idea of what matters most and everything. I mean, it's just so key to, your belief system, a sense of purpose. What's your why? All this is critically important to understand. And if you don't understand it, search like I did. Start searching, start reading. I mean, I hope enjoy my book. I mean, it'll give you a start on my process. But I just encourage you. The worst thing after people listen to our discussion, the worst thing is don't do anything. The worst thing is do nothing. The best thing is take a step like we did on Kilimanjaro. It seems voluminous. It seems impossible, but take a step, then take another step. You'll be amazed what'll happen.
Yeah. Because some people, they can feel like this is such a big deal. I know I need to do something, and can feel overwhelming. And the usual thing is to turn and run away.
You're exactly right. That's the easy way out, by the way.
Yeah. But it's just don't overthink it and just say, okay, well, this is how I'm feeling today. Well, what's the first thing I can do? The first small thing I can do that can just move the dial that little bit further.
Correct.
And the next day, maybe I'll feel a bit better and I can do a bit more.
Correct.
But I think we're so pre-programmed. It's all got to be done here and now, and we want everything instantly, rather than say, well, no, this is a process. And it's
that's
something
right.
we need to learn, and we need to adapt to gradually, because when you do things slowly, gradually, you learn and you become stronger, and it lasts you for life. Then when you do things too quickly, for some reason, it doesn't have the same value, and you lose it very quickly. And a slow, it's like the tortoise and hare story, isn't it? You just slow and steady wins the race overall.
Yeah, Julia, that's so well said. So well said.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you, Jack. And
my pleasure.
Thank you.
And
I can only highly recommend you go and read the book yourself. It's a great read, great story of someone's journey throughout their life from being young, tremendous success, and the lessons that you learn there. But also this wonderful ending with your son, and know that everything does work out in the end for the better. But Mountains Within, you can get it on Amazon. But if people want to find out a little bit more about your story, where's the best place they can go?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn is probably the social media platform that I'm on the most. I am on, and LinkedIn is just my name, Jack Groppel, and feel free to connect with me or follow my work there. I try to post regularly. I post a lot of the podcasts that I do there and things. I'm on Instagram, Jack Groppel 1, not Jack Groppel. Somebody got that. Jack Groppel 1 is my Instagram handle. So that's probably the where. And then, I'd say just if you want to see other interviews and things, I'd say it's on LinkedIn, or you could do a search on my name and podcasts and things.
And this is the book here. It's back to front on my camera, but Mountains Within. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys it.
Please go and get it. We've got a bit of light shining on it, but it really is a fantastic read, a really enjoyable, nice, easy read, and you're a great way to spend your afternoon.
Thank you.
Look, Jack, I really want to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor for me to spend this time with you. So
mine as well.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone else who is listening in. And we'll look forward to seeing you here next time on Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you.